honest, what's a sentence that absolutely killed you inside, but you pretended like it did?
Every year, except for the past couple, for obvious reasons, I volunteer as a camp counselor at a sleepaway camp for trans kids, and it rules. It's the best thing I have ever done with my time. My very first year, I was given the cabin of 13-year-old transmasculine kids, and they were the sweetest, most wonderful kids in the whole world, and I still love them to this day, that group of kids. On the very last day of camp, one of the kids came up to me and said, "I'm so glad that you are my counselor, because I've never met a real-life trans adult before, and I thought that being trans meant that I wouldn't get to be an adult." I don't know if you've ever had a 13-year-old look you in the eyes and tell you, "I had accepted that I would die before I reached adulthood." That changes you fundamentally as a person.
This is a lot, so I'm going to be super fast. When I was in middle school, there was a guy named Sam, and he was the first guy to ever show interest in me. One day I was crying because I had a hard time at home, and he asked me what was wrong, and I told him. I told him that my dad was very hard on me about my weight and the way that I looked because my sister was tall and skinny, but I was curvy. He comforted me, but then the next day, him and his friends started bullying me, yelling "whale" at me and throwing food at me from then until graduation of our senior year of high school. I really couldn't tell anyone because it was the same thing at home. One day after school, I was walking to the pickup spot and he followed me. And he said that I was so ugly and so fucking fat that nobody would ever even want to rape me. That same day I got home and my dad sat me down and he said that I would never get a job because I was so fat. I wasn't fat, I was just curvy. It was just the times. And now I have binge eating disorder because I couldn't imagine myself skinny.
My sentence is an answer to a question I probably should have never asked. I was married for about 9 years at this time, which now is like 13 years ago. And for 13 years, this has been stuck in my head, and you'll probably never go away. My husband at the time was sitting in his chair looking at me. And you know somebody's looking at you, but you don't really say anything. And finally I did say, "What are you staring at me for?" And for some reason I thought he was going to say something nice. I really did think he was going to say something nice. And without missing a beat, he said, "I must have been desperate the day I married your fat, ugly ass." Yeah. Never shed a tear. Never let him see you cry.
So mine came via text message. Right there, telling me to go access my health chart. I had an appointment with my doctor 2 days later to go over these results, but this is basically what I saw. So I was home alone, even though my daughter only lives with me, but I didn't have anyone with me. I was Googling like crazy, trying to figure out what that meant. Figured it out, but I still called my mother, who's a registered nurse, and I had her read it too. She went to Google, but she's an RN and has been pretty much all my life, so I knew that she was just confirming what she already knew, which is that I had cancer. So we had to three-way in my father, and that was the third time that I ever heard him cry in my life.
I was 25 weeks pregnant with my second kid, home from the hospital ship off the coast of Congo, where we were living and working for maternity leave. My husband was still overseas, and I took my sister with me to the ultrasound, first ultrasound I'd had in that pregnancy, because it was going to be fun, and she was going to find out with me, whether it was a boy or a girl, whether she was having a niece or a nephew. And the tech just kept looking at the heart and kept looking at the heart and kept looking at the heart, and I kind of turned to my sister and I whispered to her, I said, if she says she has to talk to the doctor, then there's something that's really wrong, because she shouldn't be looking at that for so long. And about 10 seconds later, the tech put down the probe and said, "I'm just gonna review the images with the doctor." I don't remember if it was 10 minutes or an hour or a lifetime later that I was sitting across from the doctor in a strangely sunny office with my sister next to me, and she looked at me and she said, "This is going to be hard to hear." She went on to tell me that my son, my unborn son, had a laundry list of heart defects and other organ defects, and had something called heterotaxy syndrome. And at that point, everything was so severe and his heart rate was low. And she told me that his defects were likely incompatible with life. To be honest, I don't think I did the best job at acting like it didn't bother me. My sister can probably attest to that, but you can only hear so many life-altering sentences in one day. That being said, my son turned 7 on Thursday.
When I told my grandmother what had been happening with my dad, she said no, he wouldn't do that, he was a good man. And then my mom said the same thing days later. But that wasn't the worst one, because the year previous, when I told my brother, after my sister told me to tell him, my brother told me, "Really? After everything he's done for you?" And that really hurt a lot.
So, when my twin brother and I were 2 years old, we were put up for adoption. Our biological mother, Gloria, walked us into an office, the adoption agency. Sat down. We were told to go play. So, we did. But before we left, she said, "When I leave here, you're never going to see me again. I'm never coming back." We played for quite a while. I noticed she had left, but my brother didn't. And when he did, he said, "Where's Mommy? Go find Mommy." So I walked around that corner looking for Mommy. The lady at the desk saw me and said, "Don't you remember? She said she was never coming back."
I began experiencing some abdominal pain while I was pregnant, and on the day that I was 34 weeks, I contacted my doctor's office to see if they could work me in because it had kept me up all night. I assumed it was gallbladder related. I saw my doctor, he ordered some blood work. I went and had that done, and then went to grab something to eat with my daughter and my mom. While out to eat, the doctor called me and told me I needed to get to the hospital immediately, but did not give me any details. Once I met my doctor at the hospital in labor and delivery, I was informed that I had something called HELP syndrome and I was in liver failure. My baby and I were both at risk for death. Worried about my son's ability to breathe, I begged the doctor to give me a steroid shot. I said, "Please, just give me 24 hours. My doctor looked at me and he said, "We don't have 24 hours.
I was shunned by my parents in July 2018. This includes my sister, my younger brother, and my baby sister. She was 2 at the time. I ran into them at the laundromat, and this was November, so it's only been a few months. And I tried to talk to my mom, and she ignored me, and she continued putting in detergent. I tried to talk to my sister, she ignored me. My baby brother, he ignored me. My 2-year-old baby sister ran up to me, and I held her, and she said, "Crystal, I missed you." And I said, "Do you remember me?" And she was like, "Yeah, I do." It's been 3 years. She was 2 years old. I don't think she's gonna remember that for a very long time. Cue Chicago with them firecrackers.
So for me, it was when, I got the phone call that my son was found face down in the bathtub. And I was told under the impression that they were going to keep my son on machines. So he had a heartbeat and was breathing so that I could say my goodbyes to him, kiss him one more last time before he passed. And it wasn't until I landed that I heard the sentence that they weren't able to keep him on, that he had unfortunately passed. and it absolutely destroyed me on the inside. But my family was so hurt, and they needed me to be strong then, that I didn't even show it. And that was the beginning of my downfall to my massive depression. I've come a long way, but that sentence almost took my life.